My vision is just to shine a light on artists, give them an opportunity and a space to tell their story, expose people to the music, and who these artists are as people. Just looking to introduce artists to audiences and audiences to artists. This is for them. This is for us. If there's nothing else we've learned from our tapes guests this season, one thing for sure is being an independent artist ain't easy. While it can be rewarding, there are a number of challenges artists face when journeying through the music business on their own. It takes a special kind of person with a certain kind of character to want to take all of it on. More often than not, artists behind a label get a team made up of A&Rs, publicists, execs, and managers, while independent artists are all of that and more. It can be exhausting, but the quality of work put out, the creative license granted, the community and following built from it trumps all of the hard days, sleepless nights, and makes it all worthwhile to push through. To wake up and be able to make the music that you like, that resonates with people and what they want to hear, is truly unmatched. On today's show, we have a multi-hyphenate soul who has managed to master consistency, productivity, and authenticity while remaining genuine after being in the game a little over a decade. Folks, give it up for the Rob Milton.
Nice to finally meet you. You have been so supportive and shown so much love for years now. So I absolutely had to come here and speak with you.
Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Like, I'm legitimately a fan.
I'm also a fan, and I appreciate the support and the things that you're doing right now for indie artists and for R&B music and for all the things. Yeah.
I can't. I'm about to cry. I am super hyped to just chop it up with you today. I saw a couple weeks ago you had went back home to Virginia for a little while, like just to kick it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, what was that like for you?
I do that every now and then. It's funny because so I moved to Virginia when I was about 13 from New Jersey, and when I first moved there, I hated it. I hated it for years, and it's funny because now, as an older person, I find so much peace there. So every now and then, like when I need a break, when I just need to like breathe and not be like all of the things and just relax, I just go back to Virginia. And so it's really peaceful. It's just always a time for me to just kind of, like I said, not do anything. Like to
Right.
just hang out, to just be a person, to kind of live life. When I'm here in Atlanta, I'm always very like, if I go out, it's because there's a reason. Like if I'm
Right.
going, either I'm going to a show, I'm going to do a show, or I'm going to this event because I know that there's an opportunity to network this way.
Right.
But when I go to Virginia, I'm able to just relax and
Yeah.
just go to all the places or don't go anywhere. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So yeah.
Well, the reason why I brought that up is because I'm sure, like, going back home, right? Because I'm not from here either.
Yeah.
My family's from Philadelphia, so whenever I go back home, it just strikes up like a lot of nostalgia, like
Yeah.
every single time. Which brings me to like, what was it like growing up, as far musically, in your household? Like, what sounds did you hear? What records were on? What things were playing?
So it's funny, my family has always played a little bit of everything. My mom played everything from Mary J. Blige, Fred Hammond, Kirk Franklin, all of the things, Yolanda Adams, like the incredible Millennium's gospel era, and like 90s R&B. But then I would go to my aunt's house, and my aunt she had like a lot of records.
Okay.
And so a lot of my interest in like older, like funk music and stuff like that
Right.
came from spending time with my aunt. So yeah, but I grew up churchy and like in a churched home. A churched home would say churched is so churchy, but I was allowed to listen to everything. So
Okay.
I listened to a little bit of everything. And then, coming home watching TRL, so we got
Yes.
the Fifi Dobsons and the like Paramours and all of those
Yes.
things. But I'm really pretty much into a little bit of everything. Yeah.
And I mean, I can tell, like, just from looking at your Twitter feed and stuff,
Yeah.
like, you are an encyclopedia. I'm like, I don't know where all
Thank
this
you.
knowledge comes from. It
Yeah.
just, like, it's endless. But yeah, I've always appreciated that about you.
Thank you.
So with that, like, is there any one person that you can point to in your life who is responsible for, like, shaping you into wanting to do music or wanting to follow this path?
When it comes to like me actually starting to do music, it really goes to Jackie Hammond, my friend Jackie Hammond.
Okay.
I met her in a college choir, and she had like music on her MySpace, and I was like, "This is amazing. How were you in this choir? Like, why were you not singing? Like, what is like what?" And so we like kind of bonded and would like talk every now and then. And when she was working on her first solo EP, she asked me to work on a song with her, and I was like, "Me?" And she was like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Okay." I've never really done this before. Like I've sung my whole life. But so she asked me to do this song, and when we were working on it, she was like, "If you've never done this before, like once we do this, you're never gonna stop."
First taste,
She was like, "Once you do this, you're never gonna want to stop." And I was like, "Okay, we'll see." And I did it, and here I am, literally 10 years later, still doing it. Shout out to Jackie Hammond for sure for just starting me off and like giving me the like believing in me enough to do something with her.
Yeah.
And I will say that, I've made some incredible music, but one of my favorite songs I've ever been involved in is excuse me, that song I did with her that day. It's called Lazy. And it is a song that, yeah, it's a song that's just so beautiful and so sweet. And it'll forever be a favorite of mine. Yeah.
Yes. That's incredible. I love that. Like, I love that so much for you. And shout out to Jackie.
Shout out to Jackie Hammond. Yeah.
Growing up, I gotta know, like, were you a concert buff? Because every time I turn around, like, you be out here performing. Like, every time I turn, I'm like, there you go, Rob, with another show.
Got to.
So I was just interested in like what was the performance experience for you like growing up?
So I feel like most of my initial performance experiences were with church.
Okay.
And to be honest, my very first concert that I can remember was at NJ Pack in New Jersey, and it was Sissy Houston, Dr. Sissy Houston, excuse me, and Donnie McClurkin, and like it was like a Christmas thing or whatever. But a lot of my early performance experiences came from church.
Yeah.
Came from church concerts, like people coming to town, and you like, oh, Kim Burrell's here, or oh, like so and so's here, and you go to see what's going on.
Right.
But then, absolutely, I've always just been, I want to kind of say, a pop culture junkie to some extent. So I've always watched the award shows, like the Grammys, the VMAs. Those things have even back at the Source Awards when it used to be real scary. People shooting. Yes, those moments always were like really cool, and like I would rewatch and even still now to this day, like watching over and over performances and stuff like that. But then also like as I got older, I went back and forth between New Jersey and Virginia a lot, and so I would get tickets to like different shows. Like I've gone to see Mary J. Blige at Good Morning America.
Okay.
I've seen Beyonce at Good Morning America. I saw Beyonce on the Tonight Show. Actually, if you watch Beyonce performing, and actually I think it was before it was Tonight Show, but it was still Fallon. But if you watch her performing Countdown. You'll see me in the background in this like brown plaid shirt, and I was on like the fan bench, so I'm like behind her doing like the countdown, like I was one of her dancers. But yeah,
I'm gonna look for it now.
You should. Every time they post it on Twitter, I'm like, "Do y'all see me? Do y'all see me?"
So speaking of like, growing up, what was your sense of humor like? Because your Twitter feed is jokes for days, and I'm like, where do these memes? It's like you have an exclusive folder for like dedicated to memes, like videos dedicated.
But yeah, I think for me, as many Black people, laughter is kind of a thing that we use to get through.
Yeah.
And so truly, and not to like ruin it for anybody, but a lot of my funny moments on Twitter come from like being really down. And it's just like, I need to I need to get out of this. Like, what can I do at this
Yeah.
very moment? And then I just go and say something dumb on Twitter and then like go on about my day.
Yeah.
And it's just like, just having people and a community of people that like understand your humor.
Yeah, it's like very
It's
niche, like
it's so
niche.
it's so affirming, honestly. And like I do partake in what I call the Mary Mary.
Okay.
And so also a lot of times it just comes from me being in a higher realm.
Yeah.
And I'm just having fun watching like YouTube videos, and I'm like, I can't believe they said this in this video. Like, why hasn't anybody seen this? And then I post it on Twitter, and it just becomes a thing. But
Yeah,
it's fun. It's truly fun, and it, as an artist and as a creative in this space of like social media, it's really difficult to find your space. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like we're watching so many people. I tell my friend all the time, like, we're watching people be like one man in living color, like cast. Like, it's like a one man in living color cast. Like, they're doing skits and like the same type of videos, and like everybody's
Right.
doing the same thing and trying to go viral and like get this notoriety. And I feel like it's stripping us of our individuality and truly of our creativity. Everybody doesn't create the same way. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so finding that space on Twitter and just having people like laugh and understand my humor, and then also support the things that I do.
Right.
I don't. I wouldn't change it for anything, honestly.
Yeah.
I wouldn't. It's a hard space finding your space, and this is the most natural. Like, this is the most natural thing for me. Like,
Yeah.
none of the things that I do there is like me trying to get attention or whatever. Like, I literally
Right.
post my
Just
thing
using to
and I
go
go on
your
about my day.
Yeah.
And being able to just be you and not have to like put on something else,
Right.
it feels great. It feels
Yeah.
great. And so I really do hope that I'm able to continue to build that, just because it feels like this is the way that it's supposed to be.
Yeah. So with that, like, speaking of Twitter, like I said, you are like a walking encyclopedia for music. Like, not only is it full of jokes, it's full of facts.
Yeah.
I'm like, Rob be posting everything from like gospel facts to R&B facts to pop culture facts. Like, it's just like a little bit overwhelming sometimes, but in a good way.
Yeah.
In a good way, I'm like, how does one person hold all of this knowledge like
Yeah.
just placed inside of them? So like, were you like super into research and stuff? Like,
For one, I'm just like somebody who doesn't like to, with Twitter, like people very much just talk,
yes,
whether they know what they're talking about or not. I am not that type of person. I like to know what I'm talking about. Like, I like to, if I'm watching somebody performing, and not even just knowing what I'm talking about, but also like I'm very big on acknowledging someone.
Right.
Like, if there's something that I like that you've done,
Yeah.
I want to be able to point you out.
Right.
So if I'm watching a performance and I'm like, yo, who's that singing background with Solange? I'm going to look you up. And so it just like over the years, over time, it just became like I know these things. But to me, I battled a lot because I didn't think that it was valuable. Like, I didn't, not that I thought it wasn't valuable,
Yeah.
but it was just like, oh, this is just me. Like, I just know these things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then when I get around more creatives and they're like, how do you know that? I'm like, how do you not know that? You know what I mean? And so it took that for me to realize, like, oh, wow, this isn't a thing that everybody doesn't have this. You know what I
Right.
mean?
I feel like you are a great example of someone who utilizes social media like so well. So I encourage y'all, like at the end of this, go over to Rob Milton, the Rob Milton,
At
the
Rob
Rob,
Milton,
not
At
the other
Rob
one.
Milton.
The
Not just
Rob-
Rob Milton, but shout out to him though. There's also a Rob Milton in London who like writes for people, and like literally like Universal Music London be like emailing me, and I'm like, you have the wrong one.
No.
However, comma, here's my music
Here's
as
my stuff.
well if you wanna like, what's up? But yeah. So shout out to UK Rob Milton as well. I don't know if you're getting my emails, but I'm getting yours.
Probably is.
Probably.
So just switching gears a little bit, now that we got to know about like, you know, growing up and your personality and things like that, I want to jump into like the music and the process and things like that. Because you've been doing it for, like you said, 10 years now.
Officially 10 years, yeah.
So, you know, you've figured out what works, what doesn't work, and things like that. What informs like your creative process, especially when it comes to putting a collective, like an EP or an album or something like that together, like from the album art to the titles to the sequencing, like what kind of informs all of that? Where does it start?
So a lot of times it depends. Like a lot of times, sometimes my creative process is really like I'm feeling some type of way about something, and this is a body of work about that thing.
Right.
And so even like for instance, and I guess we'll talk about it, but with Showtime, the project was called Showtime prior to Showtime, the actual song being written.
Okay.
The actual song, Showtime.
I would have thought like the song, and then you're like,
no.
Okay, now the songs that it kind of encompasses the feel of the
and see, so it kind of took its own meaning because initially Showtime for me was just, I knew that I wanted to do 70s, 80s, like take it back to that sound.
Right.
And to me, in my mind, it was very much Showtime at the Apollo.
Right. Okay.
And so for me, it was Showtime, like just taking it back to like Luther Vandross and Prince and like that type of energy and bringing like funk and R&B sounds together in a way that is still very black, but also palpable for anyone. Right. Like I feel like anyone can listen to my song Roller Coaster and like love it. You know what I mean? White, black, whatever.
Right.
However, it is very black. Yeah. And we're never going to apologize for that. Facts. So that was kind of where the title came. But then in the songs that I was writing, I was talking about an experience that I had. And after the project was over, I then wrote Showtime and turned it into, it's kind of a double play because the actual song Showtime is about like intimate moments. You know what I mean? So like Showtime in that way. Right. But initially it didn't start off that way. Initially it was Showtime, like lights, stage, action, like 70s, 80s, like we're giving you bedazzlements and all of the things. Like that was just the image in my mind automatically. But even when I working with Cousin, like a lot of times the packaging and the sequencing and a lot of different things like that falls back on me as well. And then we all work on it together, but a lot of times they allow me the space to lead the way with it and say like, hey, this is what I think we should do. This is the track list I think we should have, such and so forth. And when it comes to like track listing and stuff like that, and I love that you asked this because I really want...
I gotta know.
I really want to do work like kind of as like an executive producer or like an A&R on other people's projects.
Please do, because it drives me crazy when I'm like, this song should have went before.
Yeah. Or even like the art, like the photo shoot for the artwork was amazing, but the graphics that the font you chose on it was terrible. You know what I mean?
Right.
There's a lot of like little details that I think is a part of my, I guess my calling that I'm very good at like putting together. And that also comes from knowing what I've loved over the years, like knowing what I see, like seeing TLC's fan mail album, like that packaging and that like the marketing and all of that, brilliant. Like different stuff like that just has stuck out to me. But then also being a writer and writing for different blogs and stuff like that. And when you receive the email chain from the team and they're like, well, look at so-and-so, like when you look at such and such thing, it's like, look at their album artwork, or like they don't even have this and such like that. So the whole time I'm like, okay, cool. So I need to, noted. So y'all ain't finna laugh at me when I drop. So I'm gonna make sure I have X, Y, and Z. And again, it just became a part of the fabric of my being. Yeah. And so in my mind, I'm not thinking this is something special. This is something unique. I'm thinking this is something that everyone knows. Right. Until you see major label people dropping stuff, and I'm like,
what happened here?
Where was what? They needed me. And like that feels so cocky, but like at the end of the day, I really do think that is a work that outside of being an artist myself, like I think that is a work that I would really do well in with other people. And I can't wait to like get the space to be able to do that. So.
It's needed. Like it's definitely a special art form. Yeah. Like once again, going back to your Twitter feed, there was a question that you had posed about, like, what's an album that dropped in a season that you think it should have dropped in another? Like, all of those kinds of things. I can see, like, how you would, be in like an A&R space or an exec space. You kind of walk through, and you've mentioned like, with your group Cousin, how sometimes they let you sequence and things like that. But what would you say is like the most challenging part of being part of like a collective, especially because a lot of times people will go from a collective solo, and you almost kind of did the reverse thing where like you were, a solo act for a long time, and then you went and you were part of two groups, two collectives, Sons of the James being the other one. So with that, like, what has been the most challenging part transitioning from solo to collective, and then what's also been rewarding?
With Cousin, it was the group experience. Like, it was my first real, honestly, experience collaborating outside of with Jackie. But with Jackie, it was just kind of, we did that one song, we performed together every now and then, and we've done songs together since, but it wasn't a group.
Right.
And so actually having to consistently collaborate with someone, with other people, because it started off with three of us.
Right.
And actually having to collaborate and like take into account other people's emotions. You know what I mean? Take into account other people's taste, take into account all of these things, and still be vulnerable enough to create with someone, and to like be open enough to, okay, I have an idea, you have an idea, you think my idea is bad, okay, cool. How can we merge your idea with my idea and make my idea better? I think your idea is bad. I'm comfortable enough to, and I'm sorry to say, but like, that's really what it is.
You have to,
like a lot of our time, especially with Brie and I, with Crayon and I, excuse me, a lot of our time would just be in the studio, just like, okay, you lay a melody, I'll lay a melody, and let's see which one works.
Right.
And then kind of merging those. Okay, what you did at that part was dope, so let's add that here. Da 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 da. And now I'm creating with someone else and collaborating in a way that I hadn't experienced, because I'll be in my room writing. That whole Sons of the James album was written in my room, in my apartment in Richmond, Virginia. You know what I mean? And there was no one else that I had to consider, or like no one else that was adding anything as far as like the songwriting and all that. All of that songwriting was me. So honestly, it was a beautiful, and not saying was in the past tense, but just in general, it is a really great experience. Creating with someone else, and especially Crayon, like I feel like we built really great chemistry creatively.
It translates.
And I think everything that we have made, I know, everything that we have made under the Cousin umbrella has been complete magic. And I think that it's special, and I think that I hate to say like we're underrated. I hate to like put that on us, but I feel like
You can say it.
I feel like years from now, people are going to be looking back and listening to the things that we were doing and realizing how far ahead we were.
Yes.
And I think I do. I really do. And I feel like maybe that sounds cocky, but like,
hey, it could be discernment.
It could be discernment. And it could be just also, I just like, even with like Cousin Volume 1, where we started working with Dana Johnson, who is like now kind of like my co-producer with most of my stuff as well. We really again created magic. Like every time we do something, it gets better and better. And that's the way it's supposed to be. So as long as it keeps being that, like, we will continue to do the magic that we've been doing. Yeah.
That is
it's a great experience, and it's a learning experience for sure.
I'm sure. I'm sure it pushes you in ways like you may not have realized or
ways
expected.
that you didn't even. And it's funny where you said like internet cousins, because that was kind of not internet necessarily, but that was kind of what made Cousin what it was we all hung out one time for the very first time, and it felt like
familial.
Like my favorite cousin.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? You know, like, you have your cousins, but once that favorite cousin show up, you're like, okay, we dipping out. Like, we going to, like, hang out, whatever.
Right.
And so, like, watching Jasmine Sullivan music videos, like, performance videos together, and listening to Old Twinkie, and, like, listening to, like, Sylvan Esso, and, like, all these different things that we had loved separately, and realizing that we loved it collectively. and we had just met each other.
Yeah.
It built like a bond and like a familiarity that you don't often get with people here in Atlanta. And so it honestly, initially when we created it, it was kind of like I kind of in my mind very Daria, like it was like the anti everything else.
Okay.
It was kind of like, you know what I mean, like this. We may not fit in that circle, in that circle, in that circle, which is why we have this.
Right.
For the people who don't fit in those circles, for the people who are overlooked and are killing it, and people know that they're killing it and they're being overlooked. That is what Cousin was for.
Yeah.
And so I'm really proud of that.
That is so dope. So it's interesting that you all built like that familial bond kind of, because I feel like when I found you and found your music, there was something familial about you. Yeah. And I'm going to go into like a real quick story time. Okay. So